My question to you two is: Did any of you guys out there listen to Rush Limbaugh, and have you been following social media since he? This is kind of where we are. He passed, and of course you see liberals celebrating. And listen, that doesn't really bother me. That's all par for the course. I made jokes when Ted Kennedy died. The difference is Rush Limbaugh never killed someone. So, and then lied about it. Allegedly, she died because of him, but maybe he didn't do it deliberately. So. How do you remember Rush Limbaugh? How did you find out about him? I'm curious. I think this is just the comment section today would be a good section for everyone to just kind of congregate and talk about how you found out about this guy who really changed the face of media landscape. And that's the best thing you can do is just comment. That'll help here on YouTube, and we try and foster a pretty good community. Yeah. We don't censor comments. We don't edit them. And most of you are pretty nice, surprisingly.
Surprising
on the YouTube comment section. Usually it's awful.
You don't expect
nice
that,
A lot of people don't know this about Rush Limbaugh. Whether you like him or not, when people say he changed the face of media landscape, let me kind of start here from the beginning. You know, AM radio was considered dead at that point. It was considered old. It was considered out of touch. And so they thought, like, oh, no one uses AM radio anymore, and it comes down to bands and all the technical stuff. Everything was moving to FM. And Rush Limbaugh took some AM stations, and he was just a firebrand. He had done the kind of radio that nobody had done before. He had, I don't know how many channels he had. He started with 56, and he ended up with more than 600. Jeez. And people talk about big numbers on YouTube and stuff like that, and really, before us recently, nothing compared to what Rush would get 27 million weekly listeners.
Wow.
On his show.
I would say that's a lot.
Yeah, and that's why the left really hated it, because he had power. This was a guy who single-handedly changed the face of modern conservatism, which is, he did a lot, okay? And that's why we may not remember, but President Trump, a man kind of after his own heart, did this.
I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
He's genuinely surprised. That's a really touching time.
Yeah.
And of course, I saw when he died, NBC presented it. Rush Limbaugh dies, man who was a Trump-awarded Presidential Medal of Freedom, known for his racist, homophobic, misogynist remarks.
Of course.
Which, listen, the thing is, people would say racist. You see this all over Twitter. Do you know when he was talking about Snerdley? He's a black guy. The one guy in his studio he would talk to, a really big black guy. Like
racism,
a guy who Suge Knight would be like, "Oh, don't mess with that."
He's taking his life in his own
hands. And he was with
apparently.
Rush forever. Rush had very, very loyal employees. To know him was to love him. And I know he had several marriages. Look, I'm not here to say that Rush was a perfect person.
Right.
He was a flawed person. He had a painkiller addiction. Now, that came from him actually having pain and injury, and then that spiraled out. He wasn't going down looking for heroin. There's a big difference between advocating for legalizing all drugs and saying they're inconsequential, and Rush Limbaugh saying, you know what, I developed a problem, and I'm getting some help. And people try and use that against him and then say we have a mental health epidemic in this country. Rush Limbaugh is a perfect symbol for what the left says versus what they believe.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the liberals hated him so much. I don't know if you remember this, but didn't they try to start their own, like, I think it was like Janine Garofalo and some other people, if I'm remembering correctly.
Was it Air America?
Yeah, Air
Radio
America or something like that. And it just failed spectacularly.
Al Franken had a show.
Al Franken was part of it.
Because they were furious. So this is something a lot of people don't know. Newer conservatives, they were really mad because they felt, why do we only get ABC, CBS, CNN,
every other thing,
NBC, MSNBC, and then why does he get all of AM radio? And they said, well, there are plenty of available stations. Nobody wanted it. He went there. They tried, and they failed. Because the AM radio format, 3 hours of talking, you better be interesting, and you better be right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't even close.
No, it wasn't close. And AM at the time, I remember listening in my dad's truck. It was all these like WBAP sports radio. It was a lot of church programs. It was like all these programs who couldn't get like enough following to justify FM radio status were on there, and it was just like a wasteland. You know, if you weren't listening for sports, you pretty much broadly weren't listening to AM at all.
And they tried to create legislation, which you can look this up, the Fairness Doctrine, where they were saying you had to offer equal opportunity, equal points of view on radio, but it wouldn't apply to the main networks.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't apply to CNN.
Yeah, exactly.
It would only apply, because and this was the problem that people had, that I had with the Fairness Doctrine back then, if you look it up with the FCC. CNN was considered neutral, so they didn't need to have equal time or opportunity. So it would just be MSNBC would be the one that'd say, okay, equal time, but Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, but CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS are going, well, that's real journalism. They didn't need equal opportunity for the New York Times podcast if they had radio. They thought that, well, we need to even this out because the one sort of bastion of conservatism, the one place where someone was being effective was a lone warrior. It was Rush Limbaugh. And you need to understand this. It's not only soldiers who get the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And we've talked about this with Jocko. On the air, because he works with businesses now.
Yeah.
And he said, you're working with people, you're dealing with their lives in the military, but he said in a lot of ways, it's harder dealing with businesses because you're dealing with people who are responsible for everyone's livelihoods.
Yeah.
The Medal of Freedom is generally given to someone who's taken a risk, who's faced extreme adversity. And you can't say that is not the case about Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
He single-handedly got Newt Gingrich elected. A lot of people don't realize he was made an honorary Republican because of what he did when the Republicans took the House for the first time in a generation.
Yeah.
This is a guy who had a lot of power. That's why the left hated him. They were afraid of him. This was a guy who affected political discourse and changed the direction of the Republican Party, bringing it back to something more conservative.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said just a minute ago, the tagline for his death basically was he's a racist, homophobe thing. That's the only thing that they could throw at him was, oh, he's a racist. Oh, he's somebody that we can't beat, and so now we have to try and tear him down. It's the same playbook they've been using all the way up to Donald Trump. We can't beat him. We don't like what he's doing. He's doing something different. And he's taking our audience. He took basically social media. That was what Barack Obama basically laid claim to in his presidency.
Right.
And he came and took it, and they're like, oh, crap, they just took our ball. How do we beat him?
Right.
Racist,
Rush
sexist,
Limbaugh comes to mind. We
homophobe.
called him a racist, a homophobe. We don't have that on Donald Trump.
Remember when he
but we'll go
called
with
Sandra
racist.
Fluke? Did he call her a whore or a slut because she was going before Congress demanding free birth control?
I think so.
And I was like, well, listen, hold on a second. If you were having...
That's
and
based.
Sandra Fluke said she
Yeah.
couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
She's like, well, what if we can't afford condoms? If you are having so much unprotected sex with strangers on college campus that you can't afford 25-cent rubbers at a truck stop and you're demanding our taxpayer dollars and we can't use the word slut, then you can't use it
mean,
ever.
yeah,
It's just we can't have that word.
Voids all meaning.
So they just say
at this point.
misogynist, and
Yeah.
people would see from misogynist, and then when they understand the story, they go, oh yeah, that's pretty slutty.
She's having so much sex, she just doesn't want to.
Here's
have
one
a
too. A
kid.
lot of people don't remember this. In 2008, this is why I think Rush Limbaugh really liked President Trump, even though at the time a lot of people were apprehensive because they didn't think Donald Trump would govern very conservatively. You know, he was a Democrat in New York for a long time, or at least Democrat-Republican, wasn't consistently conservative.
Questions, yes.
But they were both agents of chaos. This was in 2008. If you don't remember this, and I know some of you are young who watch this, he actually urged his listeners to register as Democrats. Do you remember this?
I do, yeah.
And vote for Hillary in the primary. This was against Barack Obama, and it was
Loved
dubbed this campaign Operation Chaos. Here you go.
The success, or the definition of the success of Operation Chaos, is just that. Is there chaos? The original purpose of this before the Texas and Ohio primaries was to make sure that Obama got bloodied up politically. He was riding the messianic trail at the time. The McCain campaign had sworn they were not going to criticize Obama. Who better than the Clintons to do it? But for that to happen, the nomination process needed to be extended. She needed to stay in. Our purpose is not to see that either one of these people get the nomination. It is to see to it that neither of them get it by virtue of the primaries, that the superdelegates have to make the choice and cause ultimate chaos.
And this is something, too, that people
great.
don't remember.
Yeah.
It was going to be Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, it was,
Remember, it was
a
for sure Hillary
coronation for
Clinton.
her, yeah.
And then all of the celebrities said, woman, because the whole sexism thing wasn't really a big deal. At that point in 2008, they acted like it was settled, and now all of a sudden we became systemically sexist again.
Yeah.
So they said, woman who, rented an apartment in New York and became a senator like after 2 weeks, or junior senator we know nothing about. He's a black guy. They all switched and supported the black guy. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And Clinton was furious. And so what they wanted to
She
do,
can't
since
catch a break.
she was expecting a coronation,
Yeah.
and also she was shaking. So
Yeah, there's
she
that.
couldn't catch
Very
a break. Then Rush Limbaugh decided to extend this into the primaries because Hillary Clinton had such an ego.
Yeah.
She was fighting for that celebrity endorsement to come back, and it really did bloody up Obama going through the primaries there. Unfortunately, at that point, it was John McCain.
Yeah, it's too
So
late.
Barack
Yeah.
Obama won. That's one for you, Democrats.
He was not very exciting.
To be fair, I've told you, I didn't really listen to him growing up because I didn't have access to it.
yeah. You
We
were
had
in
to
Canada.
pirate AM radio from Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
And at that time of the day, we couldn't really get Rush Limbaugh. There was an opposing station that had like Dennis Prager and Michael Medved.
Yeah.
But then I had a friend I found out on the bus. This was the first time I found another conservative in Canada. On the bus, the 225 on the way home. Used to go down Tash Row and then Churchill, Victoria. Okay? Anyone who's from Greenfield Park, South Shore, comment below. You'll remember that. And I remember him talking about Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
And he said, I said, you know Rush Limbaugh? He said, yeah. And I said, how do you? He said, I listened to it online. And he was telling me this was before podcasts, and you had to like get a local radio station, find a radio station that was doing the streaming. And I didn't have a computer with those capabilities. I had a laptop where the only thing I could do was type or play this game Lemmings in black and white.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So then I would go over to his place and listen to Rush Limbaugh a little bit. And I just said, what is this? This is incredible. This guy he's just saying whatever he wants. And it was never mean. It was never vulgar. It was never terse. It was edgy. But that was a big part of my development. I would say more so with this show, David Letterman, John Stossel, because I used to watch him after TGIF, and he'd get on 2020. Give me a break. Even though environmentalists say the Hudson River is incredibly polluted, I'm willing to do this. And he'd jump in.
Right after My Wife and Kids.
Yeah, that's right. It was after. At first, it was Step by Step. But I can only take Patrick Duffy in small doses. But here's something else too. Rush Limbaugh, he was canceled before this term cancel culture was a thing. And I wrote the treatment for the book Change My Mind when I was at Fox News, and I pitched it to every major publisher, and they said no. And there wasn't really a term for cancel culture, but I had a whole chapter on it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a term for SJW. I called them modern leftists. I called them American idiots and modern leftists. American idiots were the people who went along with it, who were sort of Democrats by default, and modern leftists were the SJWs and academia and celebrities. Because there was no words to describe it. Yeah. And Rush Limbaugh would run into this. There weren't words to describe cancel culture. But this was back in 2003. You probably know this better than I do. He had a stint in the NFL as a commentator with ESPN.
Yeah. Short stint.
He was a short stint.
Very short.
I think you would have to duke it out with Dennis Miller for shortest stint. And it was for entirely different reasons, just that no one understood Dennis Miller. Well, now you're looking at Warren Sapp, who's looking at that ball like a widescreen IMAX photographer like Diedrich Ferguson, who's there at the end of a CPAP.
Great field of vision.
Back to you, kid. I love the cut of your jib. So Rush was on ESPN. He was a commentator, and he was forced to resign after. I have to look at this because I have to get the name right. I know nothing about football.
It's okay.
He made these comments about the Eagles quarterback.
Correct.
And who was it?
Donovan McNabb. He was on.
No, hold on. Don't give us the commentary. And you are red.
He is very red.
Oh my God.
He needs to stop drinking.
He was on the cover of Madden.
He was on the cover of Madden. Okay. So Donovan McNabb. These were the comments that got Rush Limbaugh canceled in 2003 from ESPN.
Donovan McNabb is regressing. He's going backwards. And I'm sorry to say this, I don't think he's been that good from the get-go. I think what we've had here is a little social concern in the NFL. I think the media has been very desirous that a black quarterback do well. We're interested in black coaches and black quarterbacks doing well. I think there was a little hope invested in McNabb, and he got a lot of credit for the performance of this team that he really didn't deserve. The defense carried this team.
Listen, come on. You have all the running positions.
Come on.
Can we just have? Can the white guys just have quarterbacks in golf?
He should have been a running back because we're going to bring up the stats in a minute, but he had more rushing yards than he did passing yards.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I mean,
apparently he was right about Donovan.
The Eagles.
He's definitely right.
They scored 3 touchdowns that game. I think Donovan McNabb was responsible for 0 of them.
0
rushing or passing. He had like 17 yards passing.
He got sacked twice.
He had more rushing yards. He got sacked twice. Exactly. His passing completion was really low.
It was 14 yards.
It was like 16%, 62%, I think.
Yeah.
Well, his overall point was accurate, right? And so it's not racist to say that the NFL has a diversity program in place. They do. They have to. It's called the Rooney Rule. They have to interview black head coaches and for other coaching positions, right? Because they want more diversity. Fine. His point was, hey, this feels like we're putting too much pressure on this guy.
Right.
That's basically what he was saying to defend almost Donovan. Like, hey, I don't think he was that good from the start. You guys are saying he's the Messiah. He comes in and underperforms. Yeah. And now you're crapping on him.
A lot of people don't realize this. Rush Limbaugh was the first guy to talk about, wokeism and encourage people to think logically. Basically, what you know now is, facts don't care about your feelings. Ben Shapiro has said that.
Yeah.
Or often the change my mind. Change my mind. That was sort of the seedling for a lot of this. I mean, he didn't go out and do change my minds. And this is a guy, by the way, who was largely deaf toward the end of his career. People don't know that.
Yeah.
But he was the first person to describe sort of the social justice warrior culture, the culture of censorship from the left. And it scared a lot of liberals because here's the thing. Remember, they always used to say, that's a conspiracy, right? Oh, why are you being so radical? Keep in mind, Rush Limbaugh was around when he said they want to take your guns away. They said, this is just some crazy conspiracy theorists. And then they did the assault weapons ban, which made the whole country like California, where this legal, pistol grip, illegal.
Oh, it's scary.
And by the way, gun crime didn't work.
It didn't work.
It did not work under
didn't work.
And then it was rescinded because it was the stupidest bill ever.
Because they want it back.
And I think it's pretty clear to see. Look, I don't want to remember him just from the last portion of his life.
Yeah.
But in his own words, this was his last broadcast for those who missed it.
My point in all of this today is gratitude. My point in everything today that I share with you about this is to say thanks and to tell everybody involved how much I love you from the bottom of a sizable and growing and still beating heart, because I've learned what love really is during this. Even in the most dire circumstances, if you just wait, if you just remain open to things, the good in it will reveal itself. And that has happened to me as well. But I don't believe our darkest days are ahead of us. I never have. Like people have been asking, you've always told us it'd be time to panic. It's never time to panic, folks. It's never, ever going to be time to give up on our country. It'll never be time to give up on the United States. It'll never be time to give up on yourself.
And we'll have something else that I want to play, and I want people to remember him when he was healthy. But still, that's the message he espoused for a long time. And people have used that term "happy warrior." I've said this. Sometimes people say you're just peddling hopium. No, listen. I think that we're going to face some dark times here, and we have some challenges with Joe Biden. But I do believe that we still live in the greatest country on the face of the earth that's ever existed, and there are systems and checks and balances that can correct it. And I know a lot of you have lost faith in our institutions. So have I, especially after this last election. But the solution is not just to say, well, I'm not going to vote.
Yeah.
The solution is not to say, well, I'm just not going to, it doesn't matter anymore. Look, maybe you feel as though we're in a tough spot with the election. Maybe you feel that we're in a tough spot with Joe Biden and them having control of the House and the Senate. But look, this show, keep in mind, in 2009, and you can go to CrowderBits and watch Crowder Classics, where I was talking about Joe Biden being a demented old circus monkey back then.
Yes.
He's gotten older since
Just so
then.
you know, no one
FYI.
was paying me then, and I pay me now. People are like, who's paying you? Go back to 2009, where I had Jason Priestley sideburns and a blue bed sheet. I wasn't taking big Koch brother money, or
Bring
big,
it
and
back.
fracking wasn't a thing. I didn't get fracking money.
It was 300 thread count, too. It wasn't even a good
Right,
one.
it wasn't even a good bed sheet. I almost slept on that sheet. So it is there, but people often use this sort of this negativity, this pessimism, as an excuse to absolve yourself of what you can do. You don't think that Rush Limbaugh went through some years where, listen, he was there for the whole Clinton administration. He was there for the whole Barack Obama administration. He was there for the attacks on Donald Trump, right? He was there the whole time, and he didn't just say, well, it's time to give up. Listen, this is proof positive. Sure, maybe there are some issues where I think we need to strengthen, for example, election integrity. That's what I'll say. We need to definitely make sure that elections are secure and we don't have mass mail-in voting. I think there's a way down the line, if we play it right, that we can make some corrections. But something else, this show right now, this is now the #1 conservative show on any online platform, online platform, and most news platforms. There's no way this could have happened in 2009.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no one. Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's why the Young Turks used to go after me, because they had 1 million subscribers and I had 40. And there was nothing that we could do. You guys have made this what it is. You guys have created this new movement, and if you keep doing that, there'll be more programs like this. Look, think, just this show. The Hodge twins weren't conservative. Dave Landau wasn't. Brian Callen hadn't come out of the closet. There's so many people who've now decided that it's okay for them to take part in this fight. Look at Gina Carano. She's being bold now.
Yeah.
She was forced to, but you know what? She kind of knew. She kind of knew it was coming, and she made that decision. People in positions of power and influence are becoming bolder because of, we all owe it to Rush Limbaugh initially. And that's allowed us to create this, to make you bolder, to make you understand that you're not alone. That is very powerful. There is good coming down the pike. I don't say that falsely.
Yeah.
I try and shoot you straight and tell you when things look grim. This is not the end of the line. And if nothing else, believe that and act on that to honor probably the most influential and greatest conservative of our time, Rush Limbaugh.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.